are stories about what happened.
It's true. All of it.
Hey guys, Brian from the Star Wars Canon Library here, and you heard the man, there were stories, and they're all true. Guys, this is a video that was suggested by one of the subscribers on the YouTube channel. I'm not sure how to pronounce the name. I'm assuming it's AH Ditto. I'm assuming is how you pronounce it. I did a video a couple weeks ago. Somebody else suggested of my least favorite novels to my favorite novels. And this person wanted me to do the same thing, but with the comics, each comic series. So I told him it'd be the next video. I did, and it's a great idea. I can't believe I didn't think to do this video. So guys, if you have any other suggestions for videos you'd like to see, just comment and let me know. You can email us at starwarscanonlibrary@gmail.com. You can let me know there. You can let me know on the Facebook page. It's just facebook.com/starwarscanonlibrary. And you can also send me a message on the website. It is www.starwarscanonlibrary.com. There's a contact page on there if you guys want to let us know any videos you want to see, anything like that. If you have any questions, just let us know. But today I'm doing a video of all of my all of the comic series from my least favorite to my favorite, and there's 18 different ones. So I'm going to start at number 18 and work my way up to my favorite one. Now, anybody who has been watching for a while will know what my least favorite comics are, at least the first few on the list. I've got some notes written down on each one here because it's been a while since I read some of them, and I had to go back and reread a few of them that had been a while since I read them. But I've got some pages of notes here just so I can remember what it's about, because some of them, at least these first few, are kind of unremarkable, unmemorable, if you would. So I'm going to start right at number 18, and let's kick this off. So my least favorite comic out of everything that's been released so far is actually Chewbacca, Marvel's Chewbacca comic. It was a 5-issue run that focused mainly on Chewie. He was on this personal mission to take, I don't know if it was a gift to his nephew or what, on Kashyyyk, but I don't know what it was. But in the process of this mission, he crash lands on a planet called Andel 4, and while on Andel 4, he finds this little girl named Zaro, in this mining community, this mining colony, that the whole planet and her town have been taken over by the Empire, and this pirate crime lord named, I think it's Jaum, J-A-U-M. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, if it's Jaum or Huam or what, I don't know. So, but this comic was brutal. To be completely honest, in my own personal opinion. You guys may feel differently. If you read it, you guys may have loved it. This is just my personal opinion. It doesn't mean the comic is good or bad if people like it or don't like it. It's just, this is my personal opinion. Chewbacca issues 1 through 5 were rough. It got to the point where I wasn't even reading the last like 3 issues. I was just kind of skimming through them real quick to kind of get the story. So it was one I had to go back and reread again, and it hurt just to reread it. Now, this comic does touch on the fact that Chewie did get a medal at the Battle of Yavin. This comic takes place pretty quickly after A New Hope, but he's helping this little girl try to liberate their colony and their planet from the Empire and this pirate lord. It's like a Saturday morning cartoon, to be completely honest. It's hard to write a 5-issue comic series about a character who just screams the whole time. It's really hard to do. This comic really isn't even about Chewbacca. Chewbacca's more of a supporting character in this thing. It's mainly about this little girl named Zaro. And it was one of those things where every time he said something, she had to interpret him. Like he would say something, she'd be like, "Oh, really? You think that blah 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 blah?" And it wasn't written well, in my opinion. The artwork was kind of iffy. Looked like it was done with watercolors, but I don't know. I didn't care for it that much. But the only reason this one is last on my list is because it was 5 issues. Everybody who watches this knows that I hate the next comic on the list, but it was only 1 issue, so I'm going to jump right into that one. Sadly, I don't want to, and this is one I'm going to rant about. It's actually C-3PO: The Phantom Limb. This comic is number 17 on my list. I actually hate this more than the Chewbacca comic, but the Chewbacca comic is last just because it was 5 issues of pain, and this one was 1 issue of pain. This is the story of how C-3PO got his red arm that we saw in The Force Awakens. It was a one-shot issue. There was never going to be 2, 3, 4, 5 issues of it. It was always supposed to be a single issue. 3PO is on this ship with all these other droids, and they crash land on a planet called Taul, T-A-U-L. And while on this planet, the droids start getting picked off one by these other creatures. There's an Imperial droid that I guess they have with them. But 3PO ends up getting his arm ripped off by a creature, and then it's just the story of how he got his other arm. And it's a bad comic. And even the art in it is kind of like psychedelic. It looks like if you put it under a black light, it would glow. Like, it's not well done at all. And then to rub salt in the wound, I'm a big fan of any Lego game that comes out. And on the Force Awakens Lego game, they released the DLC that was this story. It was the Lego version, Lego level version of this story. And to be completely honest, it was more tolerable than the comic was. The comic wasn't good. It was so bad, and I'm so glad that it was only 1 issue. I mean, this is something they could have touched on in one of the novels, maybe just kind of mentioned how he got the red arm. You didn't have to do a whole story based off of it. It was very painful to get through. I was excited for it because I wanted to see the story, and then when I started reading the comic, I'm like, this is crap. I mean, this is really, really bad. I hate this comic so much. But C-3PO issue number 1 is number 17 on my list. Moving towards my favorite, so I really didn't care for it at all. Number 16, moving on, is, believe it or not, if I can find it here, is the comic adaptation of The Force Awakens. Now, I love The Force Awakens, the film. I absolutely love it. I was happy with it. I was one of those people that enjoyed it immensely. Now, this comic, the reason it's so low on the list is I got this comic thinking that we were going to be getting scenes that were not in the film. Like the novel had some scenes and some dialogue that were not in the film. I thought we were going to get some more with this comic, so I started getting these 6 issues, and about halfway through it, I started to give up hope on anything new, simply because this is a seriously shortened, condensed version of The Force Awakens, and there's nothing new in it. The scene of Chewie ripping Unkar Plutt's arms off isn't even in here. The hype behind it was awesome, but this comic is just literally a very condensed version of the film, and like I said, there's nothing new in it. So that's the reason it's so low on the list for me, mainly because of the letdown and the disappointment I felt in it, because of the hype behind it. Now, they are coming out in April with a 6-issue run of a comic adaptation of Rogue One. And at first, I was like, no, I'm not going to get it, but they did come out and say that comic, they've learned from this one, and they are going to add some extra little scenes in there that aren't in the movie nor the novel. So this comic, the Rogue One comic, is going to have some extra things in it that we haven't seen yet. So I'm excited for that one. But as far as the Force Awakens issues 1 through 6 go, it wasn't great. I mean, it's just a seriously condensed version. So number 15 on my list, moving up, is let me find it here. Here it is. Number 15 on my list is the 5-issue run of Marvel's Princess Leia. This was the first of the 5-issue runs that they did, starting in 2015, of one of the standalone character comics. I was excited for this one just because of the artwork on the cover when I first saw it. Kirsty is kind of into this pinup girl kind of thing, like the Bombshell DC character she really likes. So her and I were both excited for this one, thinking the artwork was going to be really, kind of that pinup girl style artwork. And I got to tell you, this comic, I did not care for this comic at all. It takes place immediately after the events of A New Hope. Matter of fact, the first couple frames are the medal ceremony at the end of A New Hope. But Leia is going on this mission to find other Alderaanians who weren't on Alderaan at the time of its destruction. She's wanting to bring them all together to preserve the culture of the planet and of the people. It's just, I didn't think the story was that great. And then the artwork started off good in issue 1. I mean, it was acceptable. And then by the time they got to issue 5, it was like they weren't even trying anymore. It was very cartoonish. Leia didn't even look like Leia anymore. It's just, when you read the dialogue of Leia, it doesn't sound like Leia. I mean, if you go through the canon timeline, when you get to this comic, this is the first time we see Ninum before we get to Return of the Jedi. Obviously, we've seen him in Return of the Jedi already, but this is his first official appearance in the chronological timeline of canon. But I didn't care for it at all. I was actually really glad it was over when it was. And it almost put me off on these 5-issue runs for these other characters that were coming out, but I decided to stick with it, and I'm glad I did. But this comic, if you're a big Leia fan, go ahead and pick it up. It's worth the read if you're a big Leia fan and you want to know immediately what happened after A New Hope. You find out Leia had a bounty on her head that the Empire put out, stuff like that. But it's just, the writing wasn't good, the art wasn't good, and I honestly didn't care about the story at all, to be completely honest. So that was number 15 on my list, moving to number 1. The next one on my list is one that I actually did enjoy, and the only reason it's so low on this list is because everything else was so good. Moving on to the next one, number, what are we on, 14 now, is Marvel's Star Wars Obi-Wan and Anakin. This comic takes place immediately, well, not immediately, about the halfway point between episodes 1 and 2, about 5 years after Phantom Menace, 5 years before Attack of the Clones. At this point, Anakin is kind of toying with the idea of leaving the Jedi Order. He even gives Obi-Wan his lightsaber, telling him to hold on to it because he's getting to the point where he doesn't want to be a Jedi anymore. He misses his mother so much, everything like that, and he knows enough at this point. He believes he can go out and still do good in the galaxy. Now, Obi-Wan and Anakin go on this mission to a planet called Carnelian 4 to answer a distress beacon. And while they're there, they come across the primitive people of the planet, and they are locked in this serious civil war with each other. And in between the story, it kind of flashes back a little bit to different times that Palpatine has talked to Anakin, and you see some of Anakin's training with Obi-Wan, especially some of his lightsaber training with other Padawans. And you start to see the development of the relationship between Palpatine and Anakin. Him planting the seeds of doubt in Anakin's head that, eventually blooms into Episode 3 when Anakin turns to the dark side and all this stuff. But and it's very, that was my favorite part of this comic, was the interaction between Palpatine and Anakin. Matter of fact, Palpatine even takes Anakin to the underworld of Coruscant to show him firsthand what is actually going on the planet and stuff. So it was a very interesting read. And this comic, it hasn't been confirmed yet, but I'm starting to see more and more people talk about it. There's a possibility, as slim as it is, that this comic was the first appearance of Revan in canon. There's one scene in the comic where there's a woman on the planet who is talking to Obi-Wan, and she has a hologram of a Jedi, or not of a Jedi, but of a Force user with a lightsaber, and it looks a hell of a lot like Revan. And then later on she says that before the hologram lost its color, the lightsaber blade was red, and Obi-Wan has to tell her it wasn't a Jedi, blah, blah, blah. So, not confirmed that that was actually Revan. A lot of people believe it was. A lot of people don't believe it was. But personally, I'm hoping that it was. I got really excited when I saw it. I called Andrew and let him know as soon as I saw it. I showed it to him, and the first thing out of his mouth was, "Dude, that's Revan!" And it's anyway. Hopefully it was. That'd be a nice little touch to the older public, which they are starting to touch on more on comics nowadays. But obviously, Anakin decides to stay in the Jedi Order through this comic. It's a neat little read. It's 5 issues, so you could have it read in an hour and a half maybe. So guys, that was number, I believe, 14 on my list. Moving up to my favorite. Next on my list is actually one that is not printed by Marvel. It was the only piece of canon material Dark Horse was able to bring over to canon, and it is the 4-issue run of Darth Maul, son of Dathomir. This comic, like I said, is the only canon material that Dark Horse has. Everything else is Marvel. and basically this is the story. This story was made from unaired episodes of Clone Wars, and it's basically the story of Darth Maul trying to get revenge on Palpatine for casting him aside, after he has Dooku. So he goes to the planet of Mandalore and becomes the leader of Death Watch. In this comic, you see Darth Maul get the Darksaber that they're touching on now in Rebels, and you see him fighting with Death Watch, trying to take down the Jedi and his master. It was a very interesting read. I really enjoyed it quite a bit. Even though I'm starting kind of getting fatigued with the whole Mandalorian thing, this isn't a bad story. Even the Mandalorians paint their helmets red and black, like Maul's face with horns and stuff. But like I said, it doesn't even end with Darth Maul dying, obviously. We see him in Rebels, but he just runs off, and you don't see him anymore. Mother Talzin from Clone Wars is in this story. It's actually a very, very cool story, to be completely honest. Now, moving on to number 12. This is one of those comics. I've got both comic covers on here because these are actually both numbers 12 and 11. They're right side by side on my favorites. And it's actually the Star Wars annual comics. The way comic companies do these annuals is once a series is run for a year, they do an annual issue that has really nothing to do with the main story going on. It's not even considered part of one of the numbered comics. So it's kind of like a little one-off story, and the annuals have nothing to do with each other, to be completely honest. Now, the first one on my list is Star Wars Annual number 2. I didn't enjoy it as much as I did the first annual. Star Wars Annual number 2 is a one-off story. It's essentially just one comic issue. It doesn't even say where it takes place in the timeline. You just kind of have to assume. And Leia has been injured. She's being assisted by this miner on this planet. It's almost like this seriously muscled up Rosie the Riveter kind of looking woman. But it was kind of a little throwaway story, to be completely honest. No clue where it happens in the timeline, like I said. So did not really. It was all right, but it was a decent story, a decent enough story. I like anything classic era. Well, not anything. I like mostly stuff from the classic era over anything prequel. So it's not a bad story. You get a lot more of Leia, and actually this one touched more on the personality of Leia than the Leia comic ever did. So, and then number 11 is Star Wars Annual number 1. And it's more of a political espionage story of this character that pops up later in the actual Star Wars comic. And is, like I said, it was a political espionage story. It's just by a character who you've never heard of before. Kind of Palpatine's in it, if I remember right. But it was all right. Wasn't bad. It was better than the whole Leia story of being injured. But anyway, on to number 10 on my list. And number 10 on my list is actually one that just came out this past week, and it is Darth Maul number 1. Now, this is supposed to be a 5-issue run, and we've only got one issue of it so far. But based off of this one issue, I can already tell I'm going to enjoy this story quite a bit. I'm hoping I do at least. And this story focuses a lot on the relationship between Darth Maul and Darth Sidious. Hang on a second. My mic's about to fall off. There we go. Focuses a lot on the story between Darth Maul and Darth Sidious, their relationship, the leash that Sidious has on Maul because he is such an animal. All he wants is his revenge on the Jedi. There's even a scene in it where he's toying with a Jedi Master and an apprentice, and it's kind of funny. But Palpatine ends up telling Maul that he's sending him to this planet to take care of these pirates, that are hassling the Trade Federation. So it's going to be a good one, guys. I cannot wait for that. Issue 2 comes out this month. Very, very excited to see where this story ends up going. Number 9 on my list is going to be one that came out right before The Force Awakens. And it's actually the 4-issue run of Star Wars Shattered Empire. This was immediately after Return of the Jedi. Matter of fact, the first half of this comic is the last 10 minutes of Return of the Jedi. We even see Luke and Vader battling. We see a lot of the Battle of Endor in space from different people's points of view. And this comic follows a character named Shara Dameron, who actually is Poe Dameron's mother. And throughout this comic, we see the Empire is fighting back against the rebellion, trying their best, like a wounded animal, trying to still save themselves, striking planets that the rebels have brought into their working new government. And the rebels are winning more and more and more. The Empire's losing more and more and more. And it's a very interesting story. Now, the last issue of these 4 issues had Luke Skywalker in it. Shara teams up with him to break into this Imperial facility to steal these Force-sensitive trees, these Force trees that were at the Jedi Temple on Coruscant. Luke said he wasn't counting on there being 2 of them. He only needed 1, so he gave the other one to the Damerons that they end up planting in on their home property on Yavin 4. Now, I don't know what these trees have to do going forward into canon, because actually, if you're reading the canon in chronological order, when you get to that point, you don't hear any more about Luke at all until Bloodline. Or, you don't even see Luke until the end of Force Awakens going into The Last Jedi. So, I don't know what the story behind these trees are. I'm curious to see what the story is, but I mean, the comic series as a whole was very, very well done. I really enjoyed it quite a bit. And you find out they're still fighting the day after the Battle of Endor, so on Endor. So, guys, that's a really good one to pick up, and I really enjoyed it. It was number 9 on my list, moving up. So, number 8 going forward is, let me find the thumbnail for it here, is a 5-issue run that just finished not too long ago. It is the Han Solo 5-issue run. This is a story of Han Solo. Leia sends him on a mission to extract these rebel informants, but the only way he can get to these planets to pick them up without looking suspicious is to have him join this race with these other ships across the galaxy, and they're able to stop at certain planets to fuel up, and it happens to be those planets with the rebel informants. So Leia enters him into this race with the Falcon and with Chewie. Excellent story. If you really like Han Solo quite a bit, this is a good one to jump onto. And when you're reading it, it sounds like Harrison Ford. You like it, the dialogue is almost perfect. And there's even a couple scenes in the comic where it kind of looks like Alden Ehrenreich, who's playing young Han Solo. I don't know if they did that on purpose or if it was just coincidence. I don't know. But yeah, the Han Solo 5-issue run was a very good run, and I enjoyed it greatly. Number 8 on my list, and the only reason, like I said, it's Solo is because everything ahead of it is so good. So moving on to number 7, and it's going to be, that button doesn't work, it's going to be the 12-issue run of Kanan, the Last Padawan. This was supposed to be an ongoing series, and they ended up cutting it short at 12 issues to begin running the Poe Dameron comic, which is now an ongoing series. Kanan, the Last Padawan, it starts during episode 3. We see Order 66 take place. We see his master gunned down. And we see him leave the Jedi Order. Well, not leave the Jedi Order, but go into hiding, I should say. And trying to put the Force out of his mind and, becoming an exiled former Jedi. Who becomes a pirate, and he teams up with these other pirates throughout the story. But the further you go in this series, you start to see it cuts forward at one point to him with the Rebels crew, and it has to happen sometime during season 1 or after season 1 because they've got Ezra with them, but it shows him flashing back and forth between Rebels and this storyline. In this comic, we see our first appearance of Admiral Ray Sloan as an actual character in this. There's a reference to the novel A New Dawn in this comic. And you start to see what makes Kanan tick, why he is the way he is, why he doesn't trust the clone troopers in Rebels Season 2 when they pop up with Captain Rex and them. And this is a very interesting read. I really wanted this one to keep going. I get why they cut it short, but the last few issues seems like they were trying to wrap up a lot of story threads really quickly. But I really enjoyed the comic quite a bit. I got both TPBs of it. But it's a good comic. I'm not big on prequel stuff, but I love Kanan as a character, and this was a really, really good story for Kanan, especially with his relationship with Hera when it shows the Rebels episodes. or not episodes, but the Rebels issues going forward. It was a really good story. I really enjoyed it, and it's definitely one of my favorites. And like I said, I really wanted it to keep going, but lo and behold, it did not. It was cut short to make way for the next one on the list, and it is Poe Dameron. Now, Poe Dameron right now is still an ongoing series. We just got issue 10 not too long ago, a couple weeks ago actually. This story takes place immediately before The Force Awakens. Leia has sent Poe Dameron on the mission to find Lor San Tekka, who we all know he does find. It's at the beginning of The Force Awakens. But during this comic, we see a lot of the relationship between him and Black Squadron, him and BB-8. The first few issues were really rough to kind of get through, but once you get past those, the story becomes very, very interesting. Now, the antagonist in the story is a former First Order Security Bureau operative. That's a mouthful. And he was at the Battle of Jakku, which they kind of flash back to a little bit. His name is Agent Terex, something, T-E-R-E-X. But it doesn't give a whole lot about the Battle of Jakku. Essentially, he left the Empire, and he's trying, after the Empire was destroyed, he's trying to rebuild the Empire. He knows about the First Order, but he's really salty towards Kylo Ren and Captain Phasma and General Hux and Snoke. And he's trying to hunt down not only Poe Dameron, but he's trying to hunt down Lor San Tekka as well. So this is why their paths are crossing and why they're coming across each other. And there's actually a couple of very humorous moments in this comic. If you like Poe Dameron at all, you know he's kind of a comic relief character, somewhat, can be. And it shows in this comic, especially with his interactions with 3PO. There's one moment in the comic that made me laugh so hard for like an hour. Him and 3PO go to this like smuggler's planet, and you see some of the Guavian Death Gang off to the side, the guys with the red helmets from The Force Awakens with their big red dot in the middle. And 3PO's talking about how he wishes Han Solo was there to help them, but he went back to smuggling, and he borrowed money from the Guavian Death Gang and the Conja Club to fund his latest operation. And in the background, you see Tasu Leech from Conja Club, and he's taking a drink, and he spits his drink out. He's like, "What did that droid just say?" And then in the background, you see them and the Guavian Death Gang get together and then leave together. So you know they're going to find Han Solo, you know, for the events of 7. So I thought that was very funny. 3PO, even though he's nowhere near Han, is still a thorn in Han's side. I really enjoyed it. But now we're starting to see that 3PO has his own operation going for the Resistance, where he has these droid spies out and about reporting back to him anything that they can find on the First Order, anything like that. So it's a very interesting comic. I'm enjoying it greatly. Like I said, it's very humorous, and when you read Poe Dameron's dialogue, it is Oscar Isaac you hear. So Poe Dameron is very, very high on my list. It is number 6. And guys, definitely need to pick that one up. It's great. So going next on my list is one that is supposed to be an ongoing series. I'm not sure how long it's going to last though, and it's Dr. Aphra. Dr. Aphra was a character that was introduced in the Darth Vader comic, and she's got these 2 droids with her, BT and 000. They're kind of an evil 3PO and R2, and she has this Wookiee bounty hunter with him that I still cannot pronounce his name, but it's very reminiscent of like a Han, Chewie, 3PO, R2, but they're evil. Now Dr. Aphra is essentially the Indiana Jones of the Star Wars universe. She's trying to find these artifacts, and she's got the droids and the Wookiee with her. But so far we're 3 issues into it. I'm enjoying it very much. And I'm really anxious to see where this comic goes. So far, I'm really loving it. So really, with 3 issues, that's all I can really say at this point. I don't want to give too much away because it's still such a new series. But anyway, moving on to my next one, which is I believe it was the second 5-issue run they ended up doing for a standalone character. I was put off with the Leia comic. I wasn't interested really in the 5-issue runs until this one came out, and it's Lando, numbers 1 through 5. This comic is phenomenal from beginning to end. It's pure Lando. It's a situation Lando would find himself in. And, you know, Lobot is in this as his companion. And this comic, well, essentially what happened in the first issue, he gets sent on this, well, he's informed about this yacht that he could steal. And he steals this yacht and then comes to find out that it's Emperor Palpatine's personal yacht. And it's full of all these Sith artifacts and everything like that. And I mean, chaos ensues at this point. This story is one of my absolute favorites. This is one that if I'm ever bored, I will go back and read again. And it's very good. You see why Lobot doesn't speak in Empire Strikes Back. That question is answered. But I really enjoyed Lando numbers 1 through 5. You can still get the issues, but I'll talk about that in a minute. So moving on to my top 3 comics of the new canon, number 3 is going to be one that is absolutely phenomenal. It is Star Wars Vader Down. Now, the way that this was done was the Star Wars and Darth Vader comics crossed over for the first 6, 7, 8, 9 issues. And when it gets to a certain point, the Vader Down comic happens. And then Vader Down got its own comic. It was number 1. And then for the next 5 issues, they alternated between the Star Wars comic and a Darth Vader comic to get this Vader Down story arc out. And I love this story arc so much. My favorite line of dialogue from Vader ever is in this comic. He's surrounded by he's surrounded by rebels after he crash lands, and the rebels tell him, "You're surrounded, give it up." And he activates his lightsaber and he says, "I'm not surrounded by anything but fear and dead men," and he just goes to town. This comic is awesome, guys. Vader Down. Oh, excuse me. I'm so sorry. Now, this comic takes place in the middle of the Star Wars and Vader comics. So if you're reading Star Wars and Vader, you're going to get the Vader Down storyline. It's just what order you read it in. So I'll get to how you can read it right coming up here before long, but when I'm done with my list. But as of right now, Vader Down is my number 3 favorite comic. It is mind-blowingly good. It's so good. The artwork in it is good. The dialogue is good in it. The story is just awesome. It's great. And the thing I love about these comics is you really start to see that what you see in the films isn't the only times Luke and Vader came across each other, or Leia and Vader. You know, there's other story in between, and it's phenomenal. I love it. So moving on to number 2, is going to be the title series for Star Wars, the Marvel Star Wars comic. They're actually up to issue 28 right now. That's something I forgot to mention for the Vader comic. Vader only ran to issue 125, or ran to issue number 25. Just wanted to throw that out there also. But Star Wars issues 1 through 28 are awesome. It started off strong and then got kind of weak for me. But then it began to redeem itself in some of the newer issues and some of the latest story arcs. And like I said, this one crossed over with the Vader comic quite a bit at the beginning. And matter of fact, you even see some of the same frames in both comics from different points of view. It's very, very interesting to see how this happened. Now, this comic picks up immediately after, what novel was it? Weapon of a Jedi. This novel picks up immediately. This comic series picks up right after Weapon of a Jedi chronologically. So it's not like it's happening immediately after A New Hope. I'm guessing there's about a year difference in between there. But I'm not sure how long this series is going to run. Hopefully this is the one that runs forever. Even if they have to, at some point, bounce back to other stories, kind of like what they're doing right now once in a while. There was a 3-issue run, but there were 3 issues in the Star Wars series that were separated by 5, 6 issues each. That these 3 issues go back to Obi-Wan when he's on Tatooine between the events of episodes 3 and 4, and those were very interesting. Right now, their current story arc is doing the same thing, but it's with Yoda pre-Phantom Menace, and I'm greatly enjoying it so far. I did not care for the second story arc, the second book, if you would, in this comic series, Showdown on the Smuggler's Moon. I didn't care for it that much, to be honest, but it's great. So far, I'm loving this series, with an exception of that. So Guys, number 2 on my list is Star Wars. So if you guys are keeping up on the comics, or if you know what comics there are, you already know what my number 1 is going to be. This is where I tell everybody to start. It is with Star Wars Darth Vader. Like I said a while ago, I was talking about Vader Down. I thought I was talking about Vader Down, but it's actually Darth Vader. Vader Down was only 6 issues, but the Darth Vader comic runs 25 issues. Sorry for the confusion there. I messed that up. But Darth Vader was supposed to be an ongoing series. It ended up cutting short at 25 issues. And this story, like I said, the first part of it overlaps with the story of Star Wars, the Marvel Star Wars at first, and then kind of goes off in its own direction. Darth Vader had an annual comic, and I had it on the list, but then I realized it was in with the TPBs, so it was actually combined in with everything else. So that's why that wasn't on the list. But you start to see what's going on in Vader's head a lot in this comic, and him trying to hunt down the rebel who blew up the Death Star, finding out that it's a guy named Skywalker, finding out that it's his son. There's even one point in this comic where he sends somebody to interrogate the mortician of Padme Amidala to see if she was really pregnant when she was buried. I mean, this comic is awesome. I love this comic more than anything. I absolutely love it. Now, this comic, like I said, ran only 25 issues. Should have been a full, an ongoing series. I don't know why they cut this one short, to be completely honest. People came out, some of the writers came out afterwards and said they did always plan on having a beginning, middle, and end to it. But if they did, I don't know why they said it was going to be an ongoing series. This was one that ran for 2 years, and I enjoyed it greatly. This is one of my favorites. Now, these comics can still be bought today. You're not going to get first printings. I always try to get first printings of everything. So far, I've got first printings of every issue of every title. But if you want to get into the comics, Darth Vader is the place to start. And you don't even have to buy the comic issues. The best thing to do, because the price for these comics is going up, and they are expensive for what you get. So if you want to read these and you want to get into them, don't start with actual single issues. Go get the TPBs, the graphic novels, because it combines like 5 or 6 issues into one, each story arc. Like Vader's 25 issues, if you start reading Vader, there's 4 TPBs to cover that. And the first one is just called Vader, the second one is Shadows and Secrets, the second one is the Shu Toran War, and the fourth one is End of Games. And read them that way. And it's just a graphic novel, it's way better to buy them that way. The only reason I buy both is because I'm a stickler when it comes to comic books. I collect comic books, and I could just get the TPBs, but I'd rather have the comic issues as well. I have this weird dream in my head that someday down the road I'm going to die and my family's going to find this chest full of like millions of dollars worth of comic books in the attic that are still in gem mint condition. So that's why I buy them, but I buy the TPBs to put on the shelf because I think they look better, to be honest. I keep my comics in a long box over there, but guys, if you're wanting to get into these comics, that's the order that I would do it in, I guess backwards from that order. But that's my least favorite to my favorite comics at this point. Now, we still have, obviously, the comic for Rogue One coming out. We're going to get a comic adaptation of 8. Hopefully they do the same thing, of Episode 8. Hopefully they do the same thing they're doing with Rogue One, adding some extra things in there. They haven't announced that yet, but we're going to get it. Let's see, I'm really hoping we get a 5-issue run of Luke Skywalker. That's the only main character we haven't got one of yet. So I'm really, really hoping we get that one. But guys, what are your thoughts on these comics? If you've read them, what's your favorite one? What's your least favorite one? Where do you agree with me? Where do you disagree with me? Just comment below and let me know, guys. If you like this video, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe. I'm trying to knock some more videos out. If you guys have any more ideas for videos for us to do here at the Canon Library, just let us know. Like I said, you can email them to us. You can send them to me on a Facebook message. You can comment on one of these videos. I'll see it. All right. So any ideas for that, just let me know, guys. So like I said, comment below. Let us know what your favorite comics are, your least favorite comics, why you loved them, why you didn't. What do you want to see in a comic series? What eras do you want to see? What characters do you want to see to get their get their own arcs? And what are you looking forward to the most as far as comics go that we already know are coming that are not out yet, guys? Hey, guys, as always, this is Brian from the Star Wars Canon Library. I'm taking off. May the Force be with you.